Hi everyone, it's Charlie Webster here. Welcome along to My Sporting Mind. The podcast is all about opening up the conversation about mental health in sport and life with the help of leading athletes. Season 2 is proudly supported by sportinglife.com, ahead of the rest when it comes to unbiased opinion and sports analysis. Today I'm really excited to welcome Celtic midfielder and Scotland international footballer Ryan Christie to the podcast. Welcome along, Ryan.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm afraid. I know it's a bit cheesy, but oh, thanks so much. We were actually meant to speak, weren't we? A few months back, I think, around 6 weeks back, and you had the bad luck of self-isolation. And I know it's not funny at all, but you've kind of had that. You've had it twice now. How have you been dealing with that time, and how do you find that self-isolation?
Probably, it was tough. Obviously, I think after the kind of major lockdown over the whole country, when football stopped and stuff like that, it was a bit different because everyone was kind of in it together, and even all your teammates were doing the same thing. Whereas obviously when you're out with the kind of self-isolation stuff, it's a bit different, having to kind of watch on every Saturday, and you're watching your team and just desperate to be out there trying to help them, and you're sat in the house not allowed to leave. So it was definitely frustrating. They were definitely tougher, like I said, compared to the big one, but in other ways it kind of gave you that love for football again, because you were just desperate to get back and about it.
Yeah, do you think that's important sometimes? Because I think, for you, you're in it every day, non-stop, and because that's probably the only time, right, you've ever in your career taken a pause.
Yeah, that's it. I think that, and probably the only other time is injury. Obviously injuries again can be very frustrating, but I think the one thing with injuries, you find that love for football again, and you're just desperate to be back and doing what you love as soon as possible, because like you said, it's pretty non-stop. It's 24/7, especially going through the seasons and the amount of games we play these days. So you don't really get a time sometimes to step back and appreciate it. So it's good.
What do you do for downtime?
Not too much at all. I like a bit of the PlayStation. Always playing with some of the boys on that, and apart from that, not much really. Me and my girlfriend are trying to get into a bit of cooking recently, so during the lockdown, and ever since, we've been trying to improve our cooking skills.
That, what, it's so funny, because I think that's the main thing that people have changed over this lockdown period. They've improved cooking. Like, I feel the same. I'm like, oh my God, I can actually cook now. Yeah. Whereas before I was like, no, not interested. Have you got any specialty dishes or anything?
No, I'm gonna say I'm more the sous chef to her. She's she takes the main lead, but we've had a couple good. I'm trying to get my head around how to cook perfect steak right now. That's the challenge in front of me. So it's been good. We've definitely improved from before the lockdown. It was a lot of deliveries, that's for sure, into my household.
Right. What I wanted to talk to you about, I thought straight in there, let's talk a bit about the Euros. We were just chatting about them. Obviously, I'm England, you're Scotland. It's been an incredible period, and you helped them qualify. I think everyone remembers watching that brilliant win over Serbia, and you scored the opener in normal time and had an outstanding game, and eventually won on penalties. Now, we can all remember that video of you, that interview with you afterwards, where you were so emotional. You could see how much it meant to you. And the fact that you said it gives a little something to the country right now, especially, I think we were kind of in the heightened time of COVID. So now you're looking back, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's it's an amazing kind of memory for me to have, and something that will probably stay with me forever. I've said already, it's probably one of the best nights of my life so far. Just the way it kind of happened. Obviously, I was delighted to score the goal, but even it going to penalties, and the way it finished, and obviously I've been shown that video a number of times. Everybody the day after kept sending me it, like, "Oh, have you seen this?" And I don't think they realized I was the one in the interview. Like, yeah, I remember.
Do you find that weird when people do that? Have you seen this? Well, yeah, I kind of was in it and said it. And also, it's interesting because the comments were all about how emotional you were, and you wear your heart on the sleeve, and it's almost like, well, I think it would be weird if you weren't emotional afterwards.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was hard because obviously we'd obviously just gone through. We've won the penalties. Then I was a bit emotional, kind of on the pitch, and it was like I would hug somebody, get emotional, kind of separate myself, calm myself down again, compose myself, and then the moment I went to hug somebody else, I just start all over again. And then I was told that I was doing the kind of drugs test after the game, and obviously you get taken straight from the pitch straight into the drugs test, and I didn't really want to miss out on any of the celebrations, so I just said, well, I'm going to stay on the pitch for a bit longer. And they said, well, while you're out here, you just go straight into press and do the interview. So, you know, I didn't have much time to kind of compose myself. I think that's why it was so kind of so raw, straight from, you know, the highs of going through. So, you know, it was good. It was brilliant. I got so many nice messages afterwards, people saying that they shed a tear with me. So, you know, it's nice to hear that.
I think we so often talk about the lows, right, in sport and in football, and it's amazing to see that the high and that celebration. But what was it like, kind of the days after, and how do you deal with those emotions? Because I can imagine the adrenaline was just pumping.
Yeah, it was. It was incredible. I think obviously it was amazing to celebrate as a group. Obviously that night, the night of was well, I would say memorable. Not that I can remember that much of it, but you know, it was brilliant to celebrate all the boys together. You know, because most of the boys in that team I've kind of come through even the Scottish youths with in terms of under-19s and stuff. So we have known each other for a long time. And then yeah, obviously, I mean, it was a bit tough. We had a game kind of 3 days later against Slovakia, I think it was, who had also just qualified for the Euros. So I remember lining up with both teams looking like they'd been on a 3-day bender. It was a bit strange.
It must have been hard to like refocus and think, right, I've got to take this seriously and still perform.
I know. Well, that was it, because I mean, we still, you know, we're still desperate. We're on I think it was like a 9-game unbeaten run or something. So we were desperate to keep that going. But yeah, at the same time, you know, the kind of main aspect of that trip was winning that game against Serbia. And as soon as we did that, you know, it was kind of a massive kind of relief off our shoulders.
It's funny because we interviewed Sam Hutchinson in the first series, footballer, and he said there are more downs in football than you could ever imagine. That's his quote. Does that chime with you, and does it make those moments even greater and reflect back on your career? I mean, you're only young.
Yeah. I mean, I probably would agree with that. I mean, I've heard the quote that, you know, the only thing that is a certain in football is, you know, is downfalls in it. You know, there's no real highs that are promised to you. So when they do come along, you know, you have to enjoy them and really soak them in, because you know, like he said, and I agree with it is tough at times, and you go through such bad spells. But you know, I like to look at it in the mindset of, you know, you need both to kind of complement each other. You know, because without those bad spells, you wouldn't enjoy the highs as much, I don't think.
But how do you see that when you have those bad spells? How do you deal with them?
It's tough for me personally. I like to just kind of go back to you know, back to kind of my basics, my kind of 101s, which is just, you know, work hard and take it right down to the core of going back to like I said, working hard every day and making sure my attitude's right towards the sport that I'm committed to. So I think if you do that and surround yourself with good people as well, I think that's important. Obviously, I've got my family who are extremely close to and have been with me my whole career. You know, my girlfriend, and then obviously other close friends. And obviously the thing with footballers, a lot of their close friends are other footballers. So, you know, they've been through the same things as you. They understand it, so they know what to say and how to help.
You just mentioned your family there, and I've seen you at games with your dad, and your dad's been there. Is there any wise words of wisdom he's given you over your career, and is he being a bit of a role model to you?
Yeah, obviously it's you know, it's been a huge kind of part of my career having him there, and obviously him playing for Inverness, and I obviously came through at the youth in Inverness. It was a massive thing, and there was a huge kind of deal made out of it at the time. But he's been, you know, I think now that I'm older, I appreciate it now looking back. Obviously, when I was younger, and there were certain things he would say, or, you know, in terms of, I mean, a lot of people speak about missing out on if it's parties and stuff like that at the weekend that my friends are having, when instead I've, you know, got a game the next day, so I'm going to my bed early. You know, at the time you don't really appreciate it until you really look back and notice, you know, how kind of important that was. And I always say, without a doubt, I wouldn't be where I am without him and what he's done. You know, and obviously it's a huge benefit for me. Obviously, he's been through football. He's done the whole career, and he knows what we've been speaking about. You know, the pitfalls and, you know, the kind of traps in football and how down you can get in sometimes. So to have him so close to home, obviously, is you know, I'm very lucky.
What do you think the difference is in the way you approach things then, rather than going out and partying and sometimes not being as dedicated to making it where you are now?
Yeah, it's huge because, and again, you know, you're told at that young age from your coaches and stuff that, you know, and that's what it takes. But there's always a side of you to think that, you know, God, you're missing out on life a little bit. And just desperate to do it. But again, it's that kind of hindsight when you look back on it now. You realize how kind of important it was, and how many good players maybe you've played with that haven't made it because, you know, they've taken the opposite route. You know, and that's when you're grateful for all this advice you've been given.
You spoke a little bit about your journey then. So you had your initial move to Celtic Park, and then you didn't really feature much in the first team, and kind of almost struggled to connect. Was that from kind of like a behind the scenes point of view rather than a football point of view on the pitch? And what was that like for you? Because you've signed for a massive club that's got so much history, and there must have been that frustration to kind of prove yourself.
Yeah, it was tough, to be honest. It was probably the most kind of eye-opening experience I've had in my career, in terms of, you know, Inverness is a very small city. It's a small club, and obviously when I was up there, I just lived at home with my mum and dad, and you know, still my mum still did my washing and cooking all the meals and that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden I was shipped down to big bad Glasgow, and, you know, I had to kind of fend for myself. And obviously there's a lot of people, you know, amazing staff and stuff at Celtic who helped, but at the same time, you know, I did get that feeling when, you know, when I first went in, it was, you know, it was pretty cutthroat, and it was every man for yourself, and you had to kind of step up and stand up for yourself almost. You know, and I do think I struggled with that a wee bit. You know, I was still young at the time, and
how old were you then?
When I moved down, I would have been 19, just turned 19.
Yeah, so you're still so young.
Yeah. So it was tough, and even I remember the first couple of times when I did get a chance, maybe it was the last 10 minutes coming on as a sub or something, and just feeling like a massive amount of pressure, obviously, because, you know, the fan base, all of a sudden I was playing in front of, you know, 60,000 instead of 6,000, so it was massive. You know, and it was tough. I think at the same time that when I joined, the team weren't playing too well, and you know, it was hard to kind of come in and change that around, just being one player. So, you know, it was a definite learning curve in my career.
What was it like then? Because you then got sent back to Inverness on loan. How difficult was that? Because I often wonder, I presume going on loan could probably make or break a footballer, right?
Yeah.
How did that feel? Because personally, to me, if I kind of thought about putting myself in that shoes, I'd probably take it as a bit of a rejection.
Yeah, it was a bit of both, and I certainly thought that. I knew on one side that I probably wasn't ready to play every week for Celtic, so I knew it was the right thing to do. And then at the same time, you know, it was what I knew, and a part what I missed, because, you know, I was so used to that life back in Inverness, and like I said, you know, living at home and stuff, being around my family. So, you know, at the time it was kind of like the easy option to kind of to go back and to know where I kind of fitted in at the time. You know, I think back now, I certainly don't regret it, but you know, maybe if I was a wee bit older, a wee bit stronger minded, then I would have, you know, kind of dug my feet in and said, you know, I'm going to stay and kind of fight a bit more. But like I said, when you're so young, it's hard to kind of know what's ahead of you.
Did it make you question whether you were good enough? As in, like, you were, you know, it's amazing to even reach that stage and to be a professional footballer, but did you question whether you were good enough to kind of be one of the superstars at Celtic?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the manager I had in Inverness, you know, who I owe an immense amount to for kind of playing me and stuff. He actually had a hand in kind of getting me the move to Celtic, and he was always in my ear saying, you know, you're good enough, and go down and you can prove it. And you know, I always had, you know, other kind of people close to me saying that they thought, you know, I was good enough. So I did always kind of believe it. I just think I struggled in the first few months to kind of really get up to the speed and have that. I don't think it's a confidence. You know, some people think it's an arrogance, but you know, a confidence to kind of come in and really try and show everyone what I'm about. Whereas I was a bit kind of, still a young boy from Inverness and a bit kind of tepid and scared. So, you know, it definitely took me an extra few months to kind of fill into my shoes.
It's funny you say confidence, and then a lot of people say that, oh, you know, the arrogant side of it. I personally believe it's almost like you can't do right for doing wrong, because if you'd have come in confident, then you'd have been called arrogant, but then you needed that confidence. And I think, to me, I think they're a million miles apart. I think you need that confidence. What would you say confidence means to you, and where have you found that confidence?
You obviously, I mean, I think you, as soon as you start, I mean, when I went, obviously I went back to Celtic and then went on loan to Aberdeen again. And that kind of loan spell was definitely a bit better for me. You know, I did really well in that loan spell. And that was the first time I kind of felt like, you know, obviously it wasn't the level of Celtic, but it was quite close. You know, Aberdeen were a team with still a huge fan base and an expectation to win every week. So, you know, that was still having that kind of pressure aspect of it, that the Celtic was the same. And then I was kind of coping with it better. And that's when I kind of, you know, felt a bit more confident in myself and feeling like, you know, I can kind of step up on the big stage and perform. So, you know, I've kind of preached it's massive. I've played with so many players where, you know, on a training pitch, they're unbelievable. And then when it comes to a Saturday and maybe they make one bad pass and their confidence goes, and, you know, just see them completely deteriorate. So it's probably something that from the outside looking in, people don't, you know, have that much, you know, I don't know if it's respect, but, you know, they don't kind of speak about it as much as they should, because, you know, it's a huge aspect of sport in general.
Yeah, I think they probably just don't understand what it's like from the inside, because I think we see the exterior.
Yeah.
Where, you know, well, why aren't they performing? I mean, you know, even at the moment, I was looking on social media, I was looking at comments, and it's just really interesting because there's a million loads of praise for you, and then the next week there's just pure criticism.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Is it something you take note of, or do you know, I presume you're a sports person, you know yourself, you know, when you've not performed, or your own criticism of yourself?
Yeah, that's it. You know, I think, you know, in terms of my whole kind of football career, I've tried to be kind of very honest with myself in terms of, you know, if it's performances or like you said earlier, when things aren't going well, you need to kind of look at yourself and have an honest assessment if you're doing everything you can, kind of on and off the pitch, to be a good professional as you possibly can be. So obviously the comment side of it, you try and log out to the 99% of it, and the people you do listen to are the ones kind of closest to you, you know, my family, like I said earlier, and obviously my dad's the first one to tell me if I've had a bad game, that's for sure. So
Does he?
Yeah,
do you have conversations afterwards?
Yeah, he's always been tough on me from since I was young. He was my coach when I was coming through the youth, so it was just non-stop football. Obviously, if we had a bad game, everybody got it in the changing room afterwards, but then I got it at the dinner table an hour later as well. So yeah, it was tough, but again, it's that thing. Obviously now I hugely kind of respect his opinion. You know, it's the one opinion that will always kind of ground me. You know, I know when it's coming from him, it's the truth, and it's an honest opinion, and an opinion I respect.
Do you think that's, you know, it's funny you said he's harsh on you and he's hard on you, and that's a great thing, but I don't know, sometimes does it make you feel, I don't know, a certain way? Because I just think having that pressure must be quite hard.
Yeah, when I was younger, it did definitely. There was times where, you know, after a bad game or something, and he'd maybe been on me a little bit, that, you know, I would just be in my room thinking, oh, this isn't worth it, and, you know, I don't know if I want to do this, and would it just be easier if, you know, I was just in school and not kind of focusing on football that much and stuff? But, you know, that would last for an hour, and then you'd realize how much you love just playing football, and you were desperate to get back out there. The same way as well. My mum was kind of the polar opposite of him, so she was the kind of middle ground. She was always putting an arm around my shoulder, so I would take a telling off from him and go run into her. So that's how it worked in my household. But yeah, it was tough. I think now it's, you know, it's got to a part, I'm a bit older, I can take it now, and he knows that as well. He knows, where we can have an honest discussion if I'm playing well or not so well.
So how do you cope with the pressure and expectation? We talked a bit about pressure kind of growing up and within family and your dad, but how do you cope with pressure and expectation of playing for such a big club that has, it's not just a massive club, but it's also one that is steeped in history and culture?
Yeah, it's you know, there has been a huge amount of pressures on us, and you know, we've kind of felt that over the recent years, and especially when you play in so many kind of cup finals and stuff like that, and you really feel it then. I think it's obviously, in parts it's good. I've heard a lot of people talk about it before, in terms of, you do need that pressure, you need that kind of sense of it means something, and it's, you know, it's a wee bit of fear, a wee bit of adrenaline, and before games, you know, because I think that helps get the kind of very best out of your performance. At the same time, I think it is a fine line between that and kind of letting it completely consume you, and you know, if you've got too much of that, it can go the opposite way. And I think that's why I've spoke to kind of sports psychologists before, and in trying to, you know, get that balance where, you know, you do have that kind of, you know, butterflies in your stomach feeling, and you know, you are nervous, but it's an excited nervous, you know, and it's a nervousness that's going to help you and help you perform to your max.
Yeah, because I think that sometimes the fear can consume people, but rather than harnessing it is a good thing. Is there anything that the really good advice that you've been given or you've been taught by sports psychologists around that?
It would probably be not to, I mean, I kind of work in the mindset of, you know, the lead up to games, when the days before, just trying to completely shut off away from kind of football and just turn my mind off it completely. So I'm not kind of overthinking it, anything like that. And then it's not until, you know, the day of the game, or maybe, you know, 3 or 4 hours leading up, that you really start to focus in. And I think that way, you know, as long as, you know, it's not constantly consuming your thoughts when you're sitting on the couch at night, maybe a couple of days before, then you know, you're overthinking everything, and by the time it gets to the match, you're mentally drained almost, you know, thinking of how this is going to play out. So, you know, that, and obviously I've got my kind of certain routines and stuff I'll do on a match day, which I feel while I do these routines, it kind of eases me into that mindset of like, here we go, okay, we're about to play a game, and you know, kind of really focusing in.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's almost like a trigger to, like that routine triggers, oh, okay, this is what we're doing today. And then it reminds you every time.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's, you know, hugely kind of beneficial for me. And at the same time, you know, it's not so much superstitious, but it gives me that feeling that my body's in the right kind of, you know, I've done everything I need to do, and I'm in kind of perfect shape going into the game.
You touched upon injuries a little bit earlier in our conversation, and honestly, it crops up nearly every time I speak to an athlete, but especially when I speak to a footballer or a rugby player. Because in 2009, you had that clash with Dominic Ball, and you had multiple facial injuries. You posted that picture of yourself with, you know, you had a massive black eye, and you almost made light of it. It was on Instagram, and you kind of were like, oh, after the game, but actually it was really, really serious. And you also had problems with your eyesight, and I think the surgeon said it's the worst he'd seen for his entire career. How scary was that? Because I know it's easy to make light of, in the sense that, you know, it's football, it can be quite machismo, but I can imagine it was really scary behind the scenes.
Yeah, it was. I think, to be fair, at the time of posting that photo, I say this all the time, I was, you know, in the hospital so drugged up that I don't even remember posting it or anything like that. So I think I was in a very kind of false sense of security at that point. Whereas it was, you know, probably one of the scariest experiences I've had, in terms of, you know, straight away, you know, you're just kind of concerned about your health, you kind of forget football almost at that point. I was just, obviously my eyesight, that was the biggest thing, because for 4 or 5 days I couldn't see out of my left eye at all, and I was kind of doing tests and optical tests and stuff like that, and you know, the way doctors are, they never want to tell you 100% it's going to go back to normal, so there was always that kind of seed of doubt that, you know, it might not be the same and stuff. And you know, it wasn't nice. It was a scary moment for sure, and obviously definitely scary for the people around me too. Obviously for me it was amazing to have them and the amount of support I had around me, but I'm sure they weren't really enjoying the experience. But yeah, like I said, after that, obviously I had the operation. I had a horrible concussion, which again is an injury in sport where like you can't see it. So, and I remember, you know, there's so many people kind of talking about it, and it's nice to obviously see advances in it now, obviously with a kind of head knock, substitutions coming into football and stuff now. But it was an injury that I didn't really understand, to be honest. Obviously I'd had teammates being concussed before and they said how bad it was, but you know, you need to kind of go through it. And it was crazy. It was like just trying to play like cards with my family, looking at like a set of cards in front of me, not being able to like read the numbers on the cards, and would watch the TV for more than 10 minutes and had to turn it off. Like, you know, it was too much. And even like simple questions, because after the operation I went to just stay with my family again, back in Inverness, and with my mum asking me like if I was okay if I wanted a glass of juice or something, and it was taking me like 10 20 seconds to process this question. Like crazy. And then obviously my family, I remember my dad, I think, called the surgeon, you know, a week later saying like, is this okay? Like, you know, he's just not himself. He doesn't seem himself right now. Is he going to get okay? But you know, it is just that kind of concussion thing. And the scary thing is you don't know, you can't see it obviously first and foremost, so you don't know if it's healing or not, and you don't know what the time frame is. So you know, that was something crazy that to go through. And obviously I completely understand how kind of serious an injury is.
It's really topical at the moment, actually, around what you were saying about concussion substitutes. What was going through your mind at the time then? Because you've got obviously your family, you've got the fact that, hang on a second, I can't process this and I can't concentrate. But then what was going through your mind in kind of like behind the scenes? Were you worried, you know, about the long-term consequences? Did you doubt about playing football, about yourself?
Yeah. You know, it was certainly, like I said, I mean, the first kind of 2-3 weeks, it was, you know, football was kind of put to a side almost, because I thought, you know, I just want to be healthy to start with, you know, hopefully get my eyesight back in.
But then it kicks in, right? Because football's a massive part of your identity.
Yeah, well,
so
that
once
was it.
you realise that you've got your health.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of thinking, right, I'm okay. And then I remember about maybe 5 or 6 weeks after now, and I was kind of feeling a bit better. My eye had opened up and I had my vision back, and that was obviously a huge boost. So it's kind of properly feeling like I was on the mend, and went to just do a simple gym session and got like a really, really bad migraine. And then even then, that's when it started thinking like, oh, like hopefully this can't keep affecting me in the long term in terms of football, because at that stage I was starting to think like, right, when can I get back on the pitch? And I was asking the doctor if it was, you know, if I could wear like a mask, you know, if that would help in any way, to get me back quicker. But yeah, it was, you know, there was times where it was, you know, a real kind of panic in terms of just hoping and praying that there was going to be no kind of lasting effects of this. And thankfully, there's not been, touch wood, obviously, hopefully, I'm hoping.
What was it like when you first got back on the pitch after that? Were you cautious?
Yeah, I didn't jump for a header for about a month after that, I think. Anytime the ball was in the air, I just ignored it.
Avoid it. Yeah.
I think everybody understood that. I think the time frame of when I came back actually helped me a lot, because you know, it happened, I think, April time, and obviously there was the cup finals towards the end of the season that I was gutted to miss out on, but I think obviously I knew in my head I was, as soon as that I was never going to be fit for them. And then obviously I had the whole kind of pre-season, so there wasn't any mad rush to get back for games. I had the kind of pre-season and I could take it easy. Obviously I could still do the fitness running and stuff like that, but in terms of contact sport, I could, you know, kind of really relax and ease myself into it, which helped helped a lot, like I said, because it wasn't like I was rushing back for a cup final or important games, or I felt like I was missing out on a heap of games. So I got pretty fortunate with the timing, and then eventually, slowly but surely, kind of eased my way back in, and I've just started heading a football again a couple of months ago. So that's me.
How did that feel? Are you bothered about the current conversation around the fact that there's been links to football and dementia and heading the ball?
Yeah, it's something obviously when I was kind of growing up, or even, I mean, I'm speaking like like I'm an old guy, but coming through, it wasn't spoken about at all. Like there was just zero conversation on it. So, when it does start coming up and people obviously start making the links, it's almost like, why is this taking so long for this to be noticed, kind of thing. And it is, I mean, I would say it's kind of worrying for me. I mean, I've had the bad facial knock, but apart from that, I'm not heading a ball too much. But I look at some of the kind of defenders I've played with in the past that have just like throw their bodies on the line, and especially like heading a ball maybe 10, 20 times a game. And it is kind of quite scary. Obviously, you don't want to speak to them about it, but you wonder if they've kind of have the worries in the back of their head that there will be long lasting effects from that. I remember speaking to a few people talking about obviously trying to take heading completely out of football at a young age and trying to disencourage it a wee bit. And obviously a great idea and probably the best place to start, but at the same time it's so hard to coach somebody not to do that, you know what I mean, because it comes so natural. Especially when you love football, you end up just throwing your head and everything at it. So I don't envy the people at the top that are trying to make changes and how you go about it, but it is something that definitely needs to be looked at for sure.
Yeah, I think it is so natural when you play football. You're not, especially if it, all you think about is winning. So you're not going to kind of go, oh, no, I'm not going to get that ball because the only way I can get it is via a header. I just think it's a very interesting conversation. Also, at the moment, there's a little bit of uncertainty around your club. As we're speaking, not that long ago, Neil Lennon resigned as manager. What's it like? Because this is so frequent in football. What is it like as a player? We don't often hear this perspective when you've worked so closely with the manager, with someone, and then they've just gone, but you're obviously still at the club. What's it like? Because there must be a lot of conversations going on. Do you have to kind of just try and put the blinkers on and just play and train and perform?
Yeah, that's probably exactly it. I mean, I've been through it. This is only the second time I've gone through it in my career. I had it at Inverness, and it's similar in terms of the first few days, of course, are going to be a bit strange and everything's a wee bit up in the air, but you just kind of focus on the thing that's most important, which is the football. And I think everybody is in that same mindset in terms of, especially the first few days afterwards, everyone's just desperate to get back on the training park and play football again, and looking forward to whatever games are coming up. Obviously, as players, we don't have much say in the background, if you will. So we have to just stay kind of professional to our job and stay concentrated and keep ourselves taken over, because it's tough. It's horrible when people lose their jobs. Of course, it's a sad day, but at the same time, you're desperate to not let it affect your professionalism.
Yeah. How do you deal with that uncertainty then? Because in terms of Celtic at the moment, there's conversations around there being a bit of an overhaul. And then, there's kind of speculation possibly around yourself too. I think your contract is still 2022. Are you a short-term person, or do these things come in the back of your head?
I think I've had so many people tell me in terms of with the situation I'm in terms of like my dad being one of them, that I can't obviously think far ahead at all. And I've tried my very best not to do that, because football changes so quickly, whether it's injuries or other aspects that can change, like the flip of a coin. So I've just been trying to take it as game by game basically, and even shorter than that, kind of training by training. I'm trying to get in the mindset of just one day at a time. How can I become better for the day after? So I think everybody in football is in that kind of same mindset. I think as soon as you start thinking kind of too far ahead, and you lose sight of what's right in front of you, and you lose that kind of the current mindset that you need to have to constantly be on it. So to be fair, I think after obviously the whole Scotland thing we were talking about earlier and the Euros, and after that you just kind of it was the massive thing to look forward to was the Euros coming up, and then it took a week or two to realize, hold on, that's not for a good few months now. There's so much work to be put in between now and then, and when you realize that, you just kind of park that to one side, knowing that it'll be coming around the corner soon enough.
I think it's a really important lesson in life about that, about focusing on the day-to-day and thinking of the day-to-day goals to be able to reach that major goal. So talking about the Euros, how are you approaching that? Because you said, that was that big euphoria, and then you're like, hang on a second, I've got to go through all this before I even get to that tournament. How do you approach it? Is it something you visualize? Is it something you're breaking down at the moment to be able to get there? Because it's absolutely huge for your country, but also you.
Yeah. Again, right now it is probably in the back of my mind. Obviously, the thought of it's amazing in terms of getting to kind of represent my country at a huge tournament, hopefully. Which hasn't been done in obviously a very long time, as everybody knows. So, that kind of side of it's so exciting, and it's massive. I just can't wait to be a part of it.
How do you deal with those big moments, which you've had a few at club level? How do you deal with, when you'll be walking out on the pitch? Not that I want to get this in your head because it's still a while away yet. We're talking about thinking short term, and then I'm asking you these questions. How do you deal with those big moments? For example, when you're going to be walking out, hopefully against England, which is going to be a massive moment.
Yeah, it'll be huge, and I think the nice thing to think about is it'll be something that kind of stays with me. For a very long time. I'm hoping that I'll be lucky enough to be part of that. Touch wood, I managed to stay injury free, and I'm selected for the camp. So, looking at that now, it's obviously a huge excitement. That's why I don't like thinking about it too much. Obviously, because
sorry,
I get myself too excited about it. But it will be huge. Obviously, we don't know if there'll be fans or not, or whatever, because it'll be even nicer to have my family there watching, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, it'll be something that's really special. It means a lot to me. I find in Scotland that the more north you go, the more patriotic people are, and I seem to be close to the North Pole from where I'm from. So obviously it's always a huge moment for me, kind of pulling off that Scotland top and representing my country. So if I get to do it at a kind of European finals, it'll be even more amazing.
Do you feel the pressure of that already, given the reaction when you qualified?
Yes and no. Obviously, I think there is the feeling that we're all kind of delighted to obviously qualify, but at the same time we're not really wanting to just go there just to make up the numbers. You know what I mean? We want to go again and kind of prove ourselves even more and prove that we kind of belong there, and we deserve to be there. So, the hard work definitely kind of doesn't stop now, and that's why I think it's good that we've got a young set of players in the Scotland setup right now, kind of coming through, all got the same mindset, very kind of positive mindset, and all desperate to achieve, really, really high things in football. And the manager as well, he just feeds that even more. So, as long as we've kind of got that mindset going into it, hopefully we can push through that and not really feel so much pressure. Just a confidence, like I said again, that hopefully we can go there and deserve that we should be there.
All right, we'll stop talking about it now. Done. Yours is done.
Well, we can keep going.
No, because I don't want you thinking about this after night. Oh my gosh, the Euros.
When's June?
When is it? Yeah. So what do you think so far is that, because you're 26 now, you just had your birthday. What's the most important thing you've learned so far on your journey, do you think, about yourself?
That's a good question. Football-wise, probably, when I was younger, my captain at the time, Richie Foran, said to me once that you don't get too high when you're doing well, and don't get too low when things aren't going so well. And I don't really take it in, and it's taken me, I don't know, what's that, 8 years now to realize, like, I see what you was saying with that, because it is such a kind of roller coaster sport that you can be so high one week and so low the next, and it's so draining on you if you do, if you go super high and super low. So it's trying to find that kind of balance and keeping yourself on point, and trying to keep to those kind of core values, if you have them, in your what you did to get you to where you are, and just trying to keep to them and stick to them. And I've kind of found that kind of mindset's helped me now. I feel like I'm definitely stronger in terms of if things are going good, kind of being able to level myself out, and the opposite if things aren't going so well, knowing how to pick myself up and how to get myself back on track.
Because I don't think we often talk about the emotional exhaustion of life and playing sport. We often just talk about the physical exhaustion and kind of the rest days in a physical sense, but not the emotional sense. I wonder if you could try and, I don't know whether that made sense to you, but could you explain what it's like in the emotional exhaustion because of having to get yourself up for a game, and it's not just about the physical side of it?
Yeah, it's probably equally as hard. I mean, obviously, when you get to a certain level, you're so fit that it just kind of comes naturally. The physical side of it, things. You obviously every game's very tough and you give it your all, but you're in a good physical shape to handle that. And obviously around football, there's so much, and it's nutrition and sports science and all that following days, the physical turnover is really quick, whereas the mental side of it, in terms of, I mean, both ways. I mean, we play our schedule, for example, last season we played the League Cup against Rangers, won it 1-0. It was a crazy game, kind of holding on towards the end, and then that was on the Sunday. And then I think we had the game on the Wednesday. So it was like this massive high, winning the cup, and everyone's delighted. And then you realize, like 40 hours later, that it's like, okay, we need to get back going again, because it's another huge game again at the league. So it's, there's not much rest, to be fair. And again, on the flip side of that, when if you get a really bad defeat, or, on the other side, you've been knocked out of a cup, something like that, you have to kind of hit that reset button on the mindset as quick as you possibly can. And I think what, something our coaches at Celtic have always been very good at is, maybe it's the day after the game, we look at it, we reassess where we went wrong, stuff like that. And as soon as that's done, it's the reset button back on the training park, and trying to get that mindset spot on for the next game. Because, if you're not going into the games and you still think about previous, it's, it's not ideal.
So what, I know you've given some really great advice and thought-provoking things around mindset there. So my last couple of questions, what advice would you give to a younger footballer out there now? Is it kind of similar to what we talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the kind of, it's always the general one that's told that, it's kind of the suffer now to be great later. And, there is, so many things you're going to have to miss out on in terms of when you're growing up. But it's, it's the dedication to your craft, and everybody kind of says, kind of clocking in those hours on your craft, and that it will repay you, but you have to pay it in time first before you get anything in return. And that's what it comes down to. I don't think anybody can look at themselves honestly and say they deserve to be somewhere if they know deep down, they haven't put in the work to get to merit that. So I would definitely say that. And the other thing I would say is something I've always said to younger kids when they ask me this question is, when I was, kind of really young, or 14, 15, trying to break through, I was kind of like tiny. I was like 5'5" maybe, and like built like the side of a £5 note. So, especially in Scotland, everybody just said, he's too small. He's not going to be big enough. He's not going to be able to handle the kind of a manly game, when it gets up to that. And I didn't really let it, obviously I took it on board, and obviously had to work on, the gym element of things and trying to get myself a bit stronger. But I didn't let it affect me kind of too much. And then lo and behold, hit the age of 17 and, grew like 4 inches in a year or something like that. So, you can't let things like that kind of get you down. I've spoken to other footballers as well, and it's obviously maybe not the same, but there's slight kind of different tweaks where, maybe something was off in their game, or they weren't the best kind of player at that time at their level. But you keep working at it and you keep dedicated to it, and a year or 2 years later, it ends off paying up, and everything changes, and that's probably something I would say.
It's a good point in terms of what somebody's opinion might be shouldn't necessarily define what path you want to take if you believe in yourself. Like if somebody's saying, oh, he's too small, but that's just their opinion at the time. But I think quite often we can be like, oh my gosh, I'm too small, and then that makes you not actually pursue what your potential is.
Yeah, that's it. As soon as, I think obviously, like you said, as soon as, if it's a negative opinion, if you let that kind of hinder the dedication you're putting in, then obviously that's when it becomes a problem. So as long as, of course, listen to it, take it in, and if anything, let it spur you on more to do the things to kind of reverse that. If you kind of do that, then it's obviously a great start to the mindset.
And other than everything we've talked about, is there any advice you would give people at the moment?
Obviously,
in terms of their mental health, really, and mindset.
Yeah, it's obviously it's a kind of unprecedented time with everything going on, and I almost think it was a wee bit easier at the start of lockdown in terms of, it was a bit different, and everyone kind of got it through it together, and where it was, everybody was doing the kind of the Zoom quizzes or the 5K runs and stuff, and here we are a year on, and it's it is hard to kind of maintain that positivity and that everyday connectivity, and it's keeping your physical health and your mental health up. It's tough, but I would just say routine's a kind of massive thing. I found that in the first lockdown, getting my routine every day and trying not to lie in bed and stuff like that, getting up early and trying to get as most done as in the day I could and keep my mind busy almost, was very, very beneficial. And then obviously just staying in touch with the people around you close, your kind of support group that you have around you, that hopefully everybody has, or somebody to kind of lean on, because the good thing about this is everybody's going through the same thing. That's one thing I keep saying to my girlfriend when she's complaining about it, and she's desperate to go out and see friends. And I said, look, everyone's in the same boat, so it's it's going to be even better when it does finally end, and everybody sees each other again. So strength in numbers definitely helps.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think it's funny, isn't it? It almost makes us feel better, the fact that we know everybody else is dealing with it. But I think the reason why is because then it doesn't make us feel like it's a failure on our part while everybody else is getting on with something and you're not.
Yeah.
I think it does help that we're in it together. Ryan, thank you so much for your time and for talking to us. Best of luck for the rest of the season, and best of luck, I suppose. I was like, spit it out. Best of luck for Scotland.
Thank you very much.
When you play England, because I'm an England fan.
Yeah,
it's been brilliant speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for listening. If you're just discovering us, there are loads of episodes to catch up on, including Eric Dyer, Adam Lallana, Ben Foster, and loads more. And remember to visit sportinglife.com ahead of the rest with 160 years of sporting knowledge and integrity. And if you're really struggling, you can reach out for help. I know it's tough at the moment, but it just takes a phone call or text message. And, as Ryan was saying, surround yourself by great people. But there are also charities that can help too, such as Mind, the Samaritans, and Sport in Mind are always there to help. People do understand and care. And you can also text SHOUT to 85258 if you don't want to talk to anyone on the phone. Take care. Thanks again, Ryan, and we'll speak again soon.
Cheers.